Sir, permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
If you like saving humanity, one-liners, and giving aliens their bombs back, have I got the game for you. Now, I was an Xbox kid back in the early 2000s, and being a kid when Halo 2 came out was something incredible. Getting it for Christmas and staying up way past my bedtime to really take it to the Covenant was just some good old-fashioned fun. Now, from the first game, although it does have its flaws, it is quite the classic, with its atmosphere and combat that make the humans almost even. I like aliens v human stories when we have a chance, makes things more interesting, and mate, did Halo 2 improve on the first. New fun guns, a kick-ass soundtrack that I didn't remember going as hard as it does. Some more of those iconic Chief lines that live rent-free in your head. I was kind of both surprised and also kind of not, booting this up just how strong the game's intro and soundtrack is. The instant I'm into it, Master Chief Collection, and you get hit with the Gregorian chants, you know you're in for something special. But with pure nostalgia and atmosphere out of the way, the game begins with Keith David explaining himself to the Hierarchs, the leaders of the Covenant, as to his big oopsie in the first game. As you can probably imagine, they aren't the biggest fans of losing one of their beloved Halo rings. But in some stylish contrasting, in the same instant we cut to 117, getting himself some new armor, going to a meet and greet with Johnson. I love how this sets them both up. Chief is on top of the world right now, and Arbiter is at his lowest point, leading to one of the coolest bromances later in the series. But for now, those pesky Covenant have decided to mess with Chief's new home, Cairo Station.
Master Chief, defend this station.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
And Chief has to do what he does best and make humanity's problems go away. To ease the play into the newish combat loop of Halo 2, our first task on this journey to stop a few Covenant boarding ships the old-fashioned way, with bullets and plasma grenades. Therefore, after ripping and tearing our way through some dropships, we bear witness to the Covenant strategically targeting capital defense ships. I wonder how they're so effective at destroying these massive humanoid vessels, eh? Anyways, upon clearing out more of Cairo Station, we slowly see changes in the environment as the Covenant slowly take over the station. Areas which were once defended by Marines are now held by the Covenant, but after being stopped whilst we're walking, it's time for some flying elites. Yay! But not really. As cool visually as the little spacewalk is in Cairo Station, I'm not the biggest fan. Flying Covenant aren't as fun to fight as their land-based counterparts. But as Chief needs to clear out a freight elevator, what does he find? A bomb. And I can guess you know where this is going. Chief decides to give the Covenant back that very same bomb, coupled with the soundtrack here that heightens the moment. Man, this whole set piece is cool, and Johnson, being the classic that he is,
for a brick, he flew pretty good.
But after Chief's little excursion with flight, it's onto Earth. One of the Hierarchs, the Prophet of Regret, is earthbound, and we need to set off to send him onto the Great Beyond. But a very rude Scarab decides to stand in our way. Therefore, after that pesky little Scarab shoots down our Pelican, the Chief and his squad need to hold off a few waves of Covenant as they search for a way out. Nice little fight here. You have plenty of buddies and the high ground. It's a good place as any to brush up on your combat skills. Enjoy the new battle rifle and SMG. I wasn't a big SMG enjoyer as a kid, but I did realize that in a dual wielding scenario, it is pretty damn solid. Good for close range. It does get beaten out by anything that doesn't need to reload though. But anyways, after that little tussle, we come to the most infamous alley in this series, Jackal Alley. A sniper alley of sorts, notorious on high difficulties for being so naturally punishing like all good sniper alleys are. But the Halo series really knows how to set up a solid mission. From fighting street to street with the Covenant, we are now treated to our first Warthog session, with some nice open spaces and beautiful vistas of Earth, all the while drifting around the valleys Tokyo style, letting that 50 bang, but also making the Covenant's job of shooting back a real challenge. Yeah, all my Warthog drivers know you need to go sideways for maximum damage potential. But how does one cap off a fun beach cruise through hostile territory, you ask? With rocket launchers, of course. But either I'm not as good at this game as I think think I am, but I feel like the vehicles aren't as tough as I remember, because my Warhawk goes the way of the Dodo, and it's a ghost adventure from here on out.
All of us. Humanity on Earth. Odd, I know, but it does help explain why they came here with such a small fleet.
But very shortly, I'm saved by a bunch of Marines with their own Warthog, who unfortunately flip it. So I do the only thing I can and help them get back in the fight and underway again. Now therefore, after clearing out the surrounding tunnels, we link up with Johnson, who has brought us a present. And wait a second, is that Michelle Rodriguez?
It blew right through us. 50 cal, rockets, didn't do a thing.
Cool. But anyways, Johnson the Mad Lad brings us a Scorpion tank to help take the bridge, but the Covenant like to test our aiming abilities. So along with that little bridge clearing adventure, we'll deal with several dozen ghosts and a few wraiths for our trouble. Again, another classic mission. The act of clearing the bridge with a Scorpion, all while the soundtrack is blasting, is just a damn good time, even 20 years later. But like all the vehicles early on, I get it blown up, so I have to 2v1 race with a launcher I found, and barely make it through. Thankfully, after that, I didn't lose to the rest. It's once again tunnel time. There is a surprise this time around though. A very kind Marine has lent us his shotgun, best for close encounters. Now the damage can be a little hit or miss sometimes, but it sounds great, and when it works great in close combat. Now we know that Halo 2 likes to spoil the player, and it's time for a new treat, the Gauss Warthog. Drives like you know, but shoots a borderline railgun beam of energy that is devastating and fun to drop on unsuspecting Covenant. With our new weapon in tow, it's off to find that Scarab from earlier, and deal with it Rick O'Connell style, and jump on its back with a shotgun, and get right to work. Clearing the beast, the fight in the Scarab is close and very intense. Now as you can probably imagine, the Covenant aren't the biggest fans of letting you destroy their piece of kit, so they're quite dangerous here. All the more reason to put our old pal Mr. 12 Gauge to work. But after Chief's little 12 Gauge rodeo, we cut back to the Arbiter off on his first mission, hunting down the enemies of the Hierarchs and some elites, and friends, who aren't on board with their whole vibe.
This oath are heretics, worthy of neither pity nor mercy. Even now, they use our Lord's creations to broadcast their lives.
Now, I really have to give props here. You get so used to fighting Covenant as the Chief that it is very refreshing to fight besides the same aliens we were fighting a moment ago as Arbiter. From hunting down elites to fighting besides them, it's just very cool, and you get a fresh and new perspective. But the Arbiter also has something the Chief doesn't, active camouflage. Now, it isn't as modern as his brother elites. Active camo is active camo. Camo that can help you out of tough situations and set up some tough spots for your enemies. But alas, in this moment, stealth isn't on the menu. What is on the menu? In the words of Frank Reynolds from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I just started blasting. Now I really dig the Covenant Carbine. Great for long range, and if you get the chance, it's great for melon popping, like playing Fruit Ninja. But after a few rounds of chasing down this pesky rebel leader, an unexpected event occurs. You know it, you fear it. The Parasite is back to make our task of hunting down the heretics that much harder.
You need to remember.
But before we can hail him, he flies off on a Banshee. Now, some decent air combat ensues, fighting around the structure while a storm moves in. Now, upon landing after that little chase, and a few bouts with the Flood, as that cowardly rogue leader is nearby, yeah, it's not a good look to let someone else clear your station for you. But anyways, as we chase the rogue leader down throughout more of his station, we see far more fights between his aliens and the Flood. The Flood are winning, so we have to jump in and sort this whole mess out. But just as the rogue leader is finally cornered, he flees into his panic room and won't come out. So Arbiter has the idea to cut the whole platform loose, which is a ballsy move for sure. In a very tense build up after taking the elevator to the very top of the station, also for our trouble, some Forerunner Guardians. Those robots that shoot laser beams are also here. So it's best to make it fast, use the plethora of swords lying around the place to get the chopping.
All my friends are in the air already. Go ahead, cut the cable.
They're now plummeting through the air facility. I mean, the visuals of this whole section are just really cool. It really helped to give you the impression that you are, in fact, plummeting to certain doom. But after all that slicing and dicing, we track the leader back to his hangar, which is now overrun with Flood. So some tough fights ensue. They're a properly tough enemy in certain ways. The variants that will melee rush you versus some that use whatever weapons they had on them while they're alive. Plus, they always come in hordes, which is always fun. Somehow, surviving the horde of Flood, it's finally time to 1v1 the leader. But the whole finality of the scene is undercut by the fact that I kept my sword from when I released the cable, and he died in like 2 seconds. That's the funny thing about games sometimes. You can get yourself in certain situations that in some ways being overpowered is just hilarious. But with all that anticlimactic melodrama, we pick back up with Keyes as her ship has chased down that pesky prophet through his slip space rupture and off to a new Halo ring. And if I had to guess, probably wants his great journey round 2, so it's probably best to stop him.
Perfect. Given what we know about this ring, it's even more important that we capture the Prophet of Regret. Find out why he came to Earth, why he came here. Chief, take first platoon. Hard drop. Secure landing zone.
Therefore, after landing, it's time to link up with some of the Corps' finest, some ODST troopers. If you've ever seen that Neil Blomkamp trailer for Halo 3, you get my love for them. But anyways, it's time to take a stand and hold strong against a few incoming waves of Covenant, who aren't the happiest with us being here. So lock in, strap up, dual wield those plasma rifles. Yeah, they're super satisfying to use. But I gotta say, it always makes me smile as a large portion of the UNSC soldiers are local Aussie lads. Hearing classic Aussie banter while blasting the Covenant is just fantastic.
Hey, there's another one!
But from close-knit battles to large-scale carnage, the UNSC once again sees fit to give us a tank. So it's more blast and fun to be had, clearing a path to regret, dealing with all manner of turrets, ghosts, brutes, and elites that all culminate in finally reaching the center of the island. And I do love Cortana's little remark here. They don't think we're a threat. Boy, are they in for a big surprise. After the gondolas and the good sniping opportunities on the nearby platforms, we meet a new enemy, the Elite Honor Guard, your standard elites with a fiery twist. I feel like they're more shielded and have a love of energy swords, so best target them as soon as they appear. But that prophet has done a runner and is now underwater. So in another cool set piece, we get a little tour of the place, going from room to room until we find the central chamber.
Now this. Your haste has jeopardized the fulfillment of our covenant, threatened our grand design. That you shall be spared a public display of our contempt is thanks only to Mercy and his wise counsel.
Getting lost in the game's combat loop did take me back. The combat and style is very post-Half-Life, super stylish but still with that point A to point B aesthetic. Not a complaint, just something I noticed on the replay. And in classic 2000s era boss enemy fashion, the Prophet is a tank and surrounded by an army. So no beelining for him here. Carefully take out his guards or you will get shellacked. He keeps a railgun in his chair, which can also be kind of annoying. I was honestly surprised by how you end the fight with regret. You ride his chair ball style and whoop him until he checks out. I think this is the birth of the mounting vehicle mechanic, which is unexpected and refreshing, as a good old fashioned beatdown is one proper way to end a boss fight. But Chief in his victory is dragged under by some mysterious tentacle monster. Because our mate 117 is out of the picture currently, we cut back to the Arbiter as he's tasked with getting the sacred icon from the holding facility. It's a key of sorts that can be used to activate the Halo rings. Therefore, after Arbiter lands, the air is tense and eerie, with lots of his friendlies killed nearby. The Flood are here too? Thankfully, for now, it's just Forerunner Guardians causing all the trouble. And I managed to save some grunts from the robots. And back to my earlier point, it is kinda cool, after spending so much time fighting grunts and jackals, and now fighting beside them. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot once or twice, but the Guardians culminate in a large battle against, I don't know what you call it exactly, a large Guardian mech, a tanky robot heavily armed and armored who loves his shield, but using Old Faithful, the dual plasma rifles, make short work of him. As we emerge deeper into the facility, and yes, the Flood is here now in large numbers, and it's also here that I really started to notice the game is turning the spectacle up with these big faction-wide fights, to help increase not only the game's scale, but to also do what those early Call of Duty games did so well, which to make you feel like part of a battle, not just a one-man army. Now the Chief, being the baller that he is, still rocks and rolls with his Marine buddies from time to time. But the surprises don't stop with the Flood. Our pal Keyes and the Marines are here too, fighting the Flood themselves, which is good for us because the shotgun is doing rounds now, and it really truly is your friend with them. The massive magazine is great for those Flood hordes that get close and personal. But with every new area, the conflict just grows and grows. The more humans we come across, you can believe we're going to see double that number in Flood. What was a simple extraction has turned into a desperate fight for survival. By luck or sheer talent, the Arbiter manages to make it planetside just in time to link up with some of his elite buddies from earlier and hold off an assault by the Flood. Now this whole fight is a spectacle. The backdrop to this battle is a massive scaled sight of a wreckage as far as the eye can see. really adding to the dread and desperation of the oopsie situation you found yourself in. Those Flood are clever fuckers, taking over everything from ghosts to tanks and the like, desperately dodging a hail of fire from our brand new Spectre. The Covenant's answer to the Warthog, between you and me, kinda sucks. So I grabbed a tank from the Flood who wasn't using it, making my whole cross-country journey much easier. Arbiter, being the Chad that he is, finally catches up with Keyes and Johnson at the central chamber.
Gotcha.
You know, your father never asked me for help either.
But they're quickly knocked out by the brute leader and whisked away along with the key. The whole lead up to this area is another banger section for the soundtrack, wading through a sea of enemies to get to the chamber, really selling the idea of the ever-present threat of the Flood. Therefore, after the brutes get back both the key and humanity's best and brightest, the brutes betray the elites and take their standing in the Covenant away from them coup style, with the Arbiter suffering the same fate as the Chief, which in turn introduces us to the Gravemind, the grotesque leader of the Flood, a sentient, fleshy abomination with a voice straight out of doom metal, letting our heroes, well, mainly Arbiter, know that his beloved Great Journey isn't all what it seems.
But this ring will make us brothers.
With some extreme reluctance, the Gravemind sends off Chief and Arbiter to their assigned task of stopping the rune from being activated. Although dealing with the sentient leader of the Flood parasite is taking the enemy of my enemy is my friend thing a little far, no? But anyways, Chief pulls a surprise on the Hierarchs and arrives in one of their chambers. Weaponless, he spooks a hapless grunt for his needler, and it's time to rock and roll. Surprisingly, with his demonic style, Chief gets to work clearing the area, coming up against the main body of brutes. Unlike the elites, they aren't shielded, but are far more tanky, and when it's the last brute standing, they go into a melee berserk mode, making them dangerous if you aren't careful. But with the new brute threat comes a new weapon, the brute plasma rifle. Now, keeping with the classic red equals fast vibe, the version of the plasma rifle is a very slick red color, with a much higher damage and fire rate, but unlike the normal elite one, this needs to be fired in short control bursts. But after the Chief busts out of the procession chambers, it's off to free some nearby Marines for the push on the Hierarch's chambers. Along the way, we get treated to some very cool visuals of the Covenant Heartland, lots of massive in-scale open spaces, structures that tower over the skyline, and just a solid alien homeworld aesthetic. Therefore, after tracking down the missing Marines,
I've got a fix on Truth just outside this tower, Chief. There's an exit nearby. Hurry.
and begins his push on the central chambers, we really do start to see our fights between elites and brutes really start to escalate. What was once tension and banter has now broken out into fully armed conflict. The Covenant structures are littered with infighting enemies, giving you, the player, option to either sit and watch the action and mop up the winner, or get in there and assert your dominance. But with the chaos of the Civil War going off all around us, a new horror awaits, as Key's ship crash lands, bringing a flood host with it, bringing a third and even more chaotic faction into this meat grinder. The visuals are really amazing here. The fights just keep everything intense, and the further you go into the facility, the further things unravel, communicating rather spectacularly how fucked the situation is. Now therefore, after clearing a path through that chaos, we cut to the Hierarchs getting overrun by the flood themselves, and retreating into their inner sanctum, but not before leaving one behind. But upon seeing Keyes and Johnson prisoners, we cut back to Arbiter and his homies, who now need to clear the brutes out of a nearby canyon and get their hands on the key to the ring.
I must get inside. Then mount up, Arbiter. I know a way to break those doors.
And I gotta say again with the spectacle, fighting in the ravine is very cinematic. Lots of large open areas with gorgeous vistas to brutalize the brutes in. It's a damn solid section. Fighting race, ghosts and alike, with bonus points for cruising with some sword wielding elites for some good old fashioned house clearing. Again, I really do enjoy the Arbiter missions more so now than as a kid. It keeps combat fresh, and especially as you eventually fight side by side in the very same room with some hunters that have been plaguing you all game, but now their shields and menacing charge shot really plays havoc with the brutes, and it truly is a fight to be on the right side of for a change. But from scenic battles and atmospheric vistas, back to the bleak carnage of High Charity. As Chief, still hot on the heels of truth, the deeper we get into the bowels of High Charity, the worse and worse the flood infection becomes. What started out as a fair fight has devolved into the flood basically owning half of the facility, and coming in even greater numbers. Even on normal, you really got to get comfortable with combat, otherwise you'll get overwhelmed quick. And surprisingly, I love that the game up until this point has been sort of a cruise. The brutes and elites are threatening, but nothing like the Flood.
For the journey and salvation.
Therefore, after Chief plays pest control and he and Cortana split up to go after Truth, but with that we cut back to the Arbiter and his homie for another good old fashioned rampage. The Halo series does power in such a satisfying way, especially after essentially having your back against the wall and fighting for your life for a while. It's good to get some power back, you know, but with times as desperate as they are, Arbiter comes face to face with Johnson and realizing they are sorta on the same team, it's time for a team up.
Listen, you don't like me and I sure as hell don't like you. But if we don't do something, Mr. Mohawk's gonna activate this ring. And we're all gonna die.
Johnson, being the badass he is, pilots a Scarab into the facility, and it's up to us to cover his approach. Again, this section took me a couple of goes, as flying isn't my strong suit, but again the soundtrack is back for some fantastic heightening of the tension and the vibes. But with our two besties in tow, a small ambush of brutes and brute honor guard is no match for their raw aura. Therefore, after that turn of events, it's time to teach Tartarus a what for.
No, Arbiter! The great journey has begun, and the brutes, not the elite, shall be the Prophet's escort.
Just like the rogue elites, this fight is cheese. I remember it being much harder back in the day, but basically two elite swordsmen pester him until his shield goes down and he's dead in like 30 seconds. Writing this, I probably should go back and play on Legendary for the proper experience. But with Tartarus joining his brute brothers in the Great Beyond, we cut back to Chief as he gives us another iconic line.
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Halo 2. Yeah, after this replay, I still think Halo 2 is a damn fun time. The music has you cruising along and is uplifting and fills you with dread all at the right moments, coupled with a solid combat loop and some new weapons, good characters, good writing, and just yeah, you can probably tell that I really like this game a lot. Halo 2 is still an absolute blast in 2026. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.
And you will answer.
All right. Shoot.